Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today. It's a pleasure to be here and to be speaking with you. If you notice, my background does not look like Olympia. It's because I'm actually in Joshua Tree, which this time of year it can be really nice, as you know, to get away and get some sunshine. And I thought that's what I was doing. And when I got here 2 nights ago, there was this crazy snowstorm swirling all around in the desert, which was beautiful, but not really what I had signed up for. But luckily today it's been sunny. So it's nice to come here and be inspired by all the beautiful design in the desert. And it's a really nice contrast to the design-centric work I do in Washington, which has its own beautiful qualities to it, but ultimately it's nice to get inspired by a different composition. Today you're gonna have to bear with me. This is my first ever lecture, so I will do my best not to drag. And I'm gonna start by kind of giving you a little bit of background about how I got into design. And I'm just gonna kind of walk you through kind of my career trajectory and talk to you a little bit about what interior design is as a profession versus what it's not. There's some misconceptions out there, so I just want to kind of like clarify it. And I want to talk about a couple of my projects, past projects, future projects, and ultimately talk to you about social sustainability, which is why the Center for Entrepreneurial Leadership and Transformative Change reached out to me. Their focus in sustainable business practices, I think, is a really cool foundation to give people who are looking to kind of expand their horizons in leadership in business. So I'm honored to be here. I want to thank Paige for stalking me, and she worked at the Evergreen Daycare Center where my son Miles is currently spending his time while I'm busy peddling design work. And yeah, it was just like really cool to kind of be found that way. And I'm excited to be here and talking to everyone. So without further ado, I'm going to open my slideshow up and share that with y'all. If I can figure out how to do that. See where I am. Bear with me. Okay. Okay. So my lecture is called Implementing Design Strategies for Social Sustainability. And I'm going to present my resume. I am a 2005 Evergreen State College alumni. I would like to say that my specialty in design is focused on mid-century modern design. I am an advocate, enthusiast of mid-century Middle America, American culture, design, history. When I was at Evergreen in 2005, I had the luxury of studying under the legendary David Hitchens, who was one of the original founding faculty members. And so I was in America in the 20th century with him, Ton Grisson, and Jerry Lassen, who were all just kind of like old guard, Evergreen faculty. And I would say that they really helped kind of shape my understanding of American history. And I had transferred from Evergreen from the Art Institute of Pittsburgh, where I grew up. And I was just kind of looking, I was always kind of artistic and creative and very design centric. But at that point in my time, I really wanted to kind of just expand my intellectualism and get more of like an academic background. I knew that my path would go back to design, but it was really imperative to me to find the right place to really develop some of the skill set through the interdisciplinary programming that Evergreen offered to really like shape my future career path. And at that point, I didn't know what that meant, but I can say that I think as you'll see as I kind of go through my career trajectory, Evergreen as an institution really helped me to kind of like defy tradition and kind of shape a career path through just like what worked for me and what didn't. I didn't have to like, walk the same line as everyone ahead of me. And so I do have kind of an unconventional career trajectory, but I think that it's really landed me somewhere that I'm happy with. So that is my connection to Evergreen. From Evergreen, I went to the Art Institute of Seattle to get my interior design specific skill set, which I'm going to talk to in a little while. I owned the Mod's Fix, which was a mid-century modern furniture boutique here in Olympia after I graduated from Evergreen. I spent some time in Seattle as a marketing director, so I was in charge of content creation for a mid-century modern focused real estate firm who had like a lifestyles website and blog that I was able to kind of like make my own content. So I spent a lot of that time exploring really amazing Ralph Anderson homes, Paul Hayden Kirk, all of the beautiful, brilliant mid-century modern architecture of Seattle. I was able to go in and explore those. And I spent a lot of time meeting with other designers and people in architecture and design, really just like kind of trying to understand the profession. So it was really cool to be in school up there, getting the skill set and then talking to people who were walking the walk. The big honor of my career was to get to start it with Artisans Group, who, if you haven't heard of, they are an architecture firm who specializes in passive house design, who are modern architecture pros. They are female owned and operated, and I'll speak their praises. They're brilliant, beautiful women. Tessa and Rusa were my mentors who really helped me get my career started. And so I spent many years there. And from there, where I am now is kind of, and I'll discuss how kind of some unsuspected life challenges helped me shift gears into kind of like downgrading into doing smaller scale things. As Paige had mentioned, I am a single mother. I do have a co-parent, but as you know, being alone and parenting two young children can be quite difficult. So I've been kind of aspiring the last couple of years to find a way to achieve balance so that I am not a, wild ball of stress for my children, and that I can actually show up and be engaged with them while simultaneously creating and, making a living. So it's a balance act, but that's kind of where I'm at now. So let's see, where did my love of design come from? Well, I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It was the 1980s, and I spent a lot of time with my grandparents who were hot and heavy in the flea market game. They had antique booths and would take their motorhome coach out on the weekends to swap meets, flea markets, and they were essentially junk peddlers. However, the junk of the 1980s was brilliant, amazing mid-century modern furniture. And so their entire house was just this cool mid-century ranch house out in the country where I spent all of my youth, admiring all their like crazy, ugly orange shag carpets and like olive drab sofas and like, the wall clocks that are all kind of like what are they, ball and spoke. So it got stuck in my brain and I really loved it, and that stuck with me. After I graduated Evergreen, I spent some time in Portland, Oregon, where I basically was just captivated by all the mid-century modern furniture stores. And I kept thinking like, oh, there's got to be a way to do this better or incorporate more design or figure out how to do this in Olympia. Why don't we have this? So after I left Portland, I moved back to Olympia and I started my furniture store, which anyone who's ever been involved in retail, especially when you are trying to provide inventory and you're a small business owner and you have to be in the store, you have to be really good at customer service. You have to be getting inventory all the time. It's really tough. And so I exhausted myself for a couple of years doing that. And I would have repeat customers who really liked the furniture and the decor that I sold, but they didn't actually understand how to integrate that into their households. So they said, do you offer design services? Is there a way that you could, come over and show me how to design all of this? So that kind of like got the wheels turning to think, oh my, maybe I should go into interior design. Maybe I could be a decorator. So that's when I moved up to Seattle in a roundabout way to enroll at the Art Institute of Seattle to start getting an education in interior design. This is the Mod Fix. It was 505 South Capitol Way. It was my very first tenant improvement. And it was just a little hole in the wall before that. Now it is Silver something, Silver Spurs. There's a jewelry store right there now. It is next to Basilico, but that was my storefront for many years. And I absolutely loved it. But yeah, retail is its own beast. And if you are not a salesperson, this is probably not the right path for you. So I got my degree from the Art Institute of Seattle. And during that same time period, I gave birth to my first child, my daughter, Cora, who is now 8 years old. And what I realized trying to navigate a large city of Seattle with now a small, tiny human, I just wanted to go home. I wanted to go back to Olympia. So I started kind of just like exploring the real estate market, trying to find, a place where we could call home. And it was a really competitive time in the market, which I'm not sure what the market is doing now, but I know it was 2017, several bids over asking. Places were getting offers the first day they were on the market. So me coming with a toddler from Seattle down there, it was just like, this is impossible. Like, I can't make this work. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to find the neighborhood I like. I'm going to find a house with a great footprint, and I'm going to just put an offer on it and assume that we can remodel it. So I had remembered I had the business card of Tessa Smith Bradley, who is the principal architect and owner of Artisans Group. And I knew that I thought, well, maybe I could reach out to her because we connected and hit it off when I had the furniture store. Maybe I'll connect with her and see if she'd be interested in remodeling this place. I found a place, perfect neighborhood. The house looked like crap. Remodeling is kind of my forte, but often what you'll find with like a mid-century modern house that's been remodeled is it has seen decades and decades and decades of bad remodeling, that it's all hodgepodge, and it's really hard to see like a cohesive vision of a place that has spent the last 50 years being remodeled by people who probably were not equipped to do it. I knew Artisans Group were the people I wanted to work with. I was thrilled for the opportunity to do that. And when Tessa and I got talking and I was sharing my design inspiration and aesthetic with her, she was just like, I love this. It's very in sync with what I like. What I didn't know at the time, because I was not really a professional interior designer, I was still a student and I was on the verge of graduating, Tessa said, I have an idea. What do you think about interning with us while you work on your own home? And that way you can get all of the educational training and you get to work on your own project. And to me, this just seemed brilliant and amazing. And it was just such a cool opportunity. So that's how I got involved with Artisans Group. I interned with them 3 days a week, living in Olympia with a toddler, driving down here, working on my project. But it was like such a cool way to enter the profession, and very exciting. And the one thing that I can say about the interior design world of Seattle is that it's highly competitive, and someone coming out of interior design school with a degree, you're going to start base level and it's going to be years before you can work your way up in that world. Because Olympia is smaller and there's more limited resources, I was able to really advance my career quickly. And I think honestly, being kind of like someone who had been around the block, being older, there was a maturity level that I think design clients, people you want to work with, they really respond to that. So it was a win-win for both of us. And yeah, that's kind of my jumping off point. We worked on my house where I currently live with my 2 children. And we ended up finishing that in 2018. We entered the Olympia Master Builders competition tour of homes. And we ended up winning Best Remodel of 2018. So my very first interior design project, which is also my home, which is the house that was featured in Atomic Ranch, was award winning. So I'm very, very proud of that. And it still feels like a fluke. It still feels surreal to this day, but it was a really cool thing to be a part of, and it was terrifying, and there was a lot of on-the-job training, but totally worth it. Totally a cool journey. Okay, I'm going to switch gears now, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what interior design is versus what it is not. Interior design is a profession. It is something that we see a lot on the Learning Channel and HGTV. And I think there's some misconceptions and something that will annoy me to no end, which happens to me every day, is people say, what do you do? And I say, I am an interior designer. And they say, great, can you like help me arrange throw pillows? And as someone who has multiple professional certifications, who has an education, who works primarily in architecture, there's nothing more offensive than that. And, you know, Tessa and Rusa at Artisans Group would say, don't call her a decorator. And so there, it's funny because, you know, interior decorators can call them interior designers, but ultimately we are different. So an interior designer is, in my case, I specialize in interior architecture. So I, you know a lot about spatial planning. I have a drafting background, so I'm more into the spatial relationships of interior spaces. And a decorator is going to tell you where a throw rug goes, tell you how to place furniture, which is funny because when I first got started and I went to school, I thought that's what I wanted. And I was terrified of the idea of like drafting, anything mechanical, technical like that. Was just like, there's no way I can't do it. But as I started down that road, I realized that it's actually like kind of amazing and really fun and technical. And as someone with kind of like a artistic, creative background, to be able to apply my brain in that way has just like kind of crossed over into all the creative realms for me and really helped open up both sides of my brain. So interior design as a profession relates to really creating beautiful interior spaces, but it's more than just aesthetic, it's about functionality. So I will always lead first and foremost when I'm interacting with clients with how to make a space functional for them. And once we determine how to make it functional, then we can make it beautiful, which is tough because as a designer, you know, I see the opportunity for beauty in everything that I look at. But it's not as important as making an inhabitable space where people can thrive. And I think that's one of the coolest things about interior design is that you're actually thinking about how people relate to their spaces. I am a certified kitchen and bath designer with the NKBA, and you would be shocked to know how much goes into the planning of a kitchen. And if you have any background in that, you know, there's a work triangle. So every station, if a place is designed well, it's been thought out, you know, there's been design iteration process. Nothing is by accident the way a kitchen is designed if it is designed correctly, because that is the most used space in your home. And so like there's 3 different stations. There's like a cooking zone and there's a food prep zone. And so yeah, so I've spent a lot of time really thinking about that. Kitchen remodel is something that I do a lot of, and I really, really like it. I do cabinet design, which I also really like because it kind of relates to furniture design in my brain. It's something that I can really wrap my brain around. At Artisans Group, you know, they're doing custom new homes. I was involved primarily with remodels, which I really, really like. And then they're doing commercial design. So I've dipped my toe into all 3 realms, and they all are very vast in the amount of energy, time, dedication you put into building these relationships with your clients. So you can be an independent interior designer who has the same skill set as me, who I do drafting, I do 3D modeling, I do mood boards, you know, I do lighting design, spatial design. Those are kind of like the key components of interior design. So you can have your own firm. You can be an interior in Washington State, you can be an interior decorator and call yourself an interior designer. However, in other states, there are professional certifications required to call yourself an interior designer. And that's because anyone who has the ability to change walls or mess with structural components of places at all have the ability to compromise life safety. And that is very important. Architects spend years in school, learning all about life safety issues. So that's a big deal. And as an independent interior designer, like the idea of messing with something structurally and creating an interior space that is unsafe for people to reside in is not something I want to mess with. So as someone who's worked primarily with an architecture firm, there are a lot of checks and balances. You have to go through an engineering process, get signed off by an architect. And so there's a lot of checks and balances there. But all of that is something to take, you have to take into account. And it's serious stuff. That's why architects go through so much training. As a designer, I kind of like lean on them, but you do really need to have that knowledge base as well to be making those decisions. So in an architecture firm, as an interior designer, at least in my case, I'm working as part of a team. So that team will include architects, designers, drafters, people working in permitting, feasibility studies, things like that. So you're all working together to create this home for your clients. So as I work through the design process, ultimately, the architects will have already been working with clients. They have a piece of land, they have their ideas about how they want their home built, and the architects work with what is called a playground. So that's a 3D model where they're now figuring out how the residence, the home, is going to interact with the land. So you have to take into account like the grade of land and the orientation. And if I had anyone else at Artisans Group with me, they would talk to you a lot about like way more technical things than I personally understand, but I'm going to keep it simple. The architects, they design the home. They have like an idea of the floor plan, and then they'll hand it off to me to start the design process with the clients. So if I'm doing a custom home, when I get the 3D model, which is primarily how I work, I will have an idea through Pinterest boards or any kind of design inspiration that the client has for what they want. We've had conversations about their aesthetic, what's important to them, what they value. And so we'll start the process, and I will collect ideas based on their images of what they like. And I will have conversations with the architects about the style they're trying to convey. So there's a shared language between the interior and exterior of a home. And not only do you have to take into account where you're at. So I'm in the desert right now, right? I'm not going to, it's hard because it's Palm Springs and there's so much flashy stuff going on here, but I'm looking out these big windows right now and I'm thinking, okay, so this is my backdrop. So I want to make sure whatever I'm doing here really complements the land and is going to create this like synergy. So, and the architects want that too. So we all come up with like a shared vision. And what I do is I go into the model and I make some assumptions about what I think the clients are going to want. So I will be deciding things like floor coverings, what kind of flooring, cabinet layout and design, what those cabinets are made of, what I think their countertops are going to be, what I think pendants are going to be, what's the lighting plan. So it's a lot of work to, and this is all schematic design. So I'm spending weeks or months working on a schematic plan that I think is really going to capture what they want and really create synergy with what's going on in the exterior architecture or just architecture. And then I present to the clients, and from there, they're either like, this is terrible, start over, or they're like, this is perfect, let's keep going. But ultimately, it's like, we like this, but we want to refine it. So the design process will move from schematic to refinement. So then I go back and I refine things. And once we get to a point where we're happy with what I'm presenting, then you go into the long, daunting process of specification, which is the primary duty of a lot of interior designers. And that is specifying every single material that is going to go into a home so that a contractor can build it. You have to basically, every deliverable that we put into a plan set, we're going to hand off to someone, and we need it all spelled out as clearly as possible so that the intention of the architect and designer is being communicated, and they'll follow through on their end. So there's a lot of hands that touch the process, and so things get missed, things get lost, but ultimately there you have it. That's what you do. And if you're working on like a 3,000 square foot home, you're in it for the long haul with these clients. You are sometimes hand holding, sometimes going through many design iterations, and it's a lot. And when you're dealing with people's homes, it means a lot to them. So emotions are often pretty big. So that's the design process in a nutshell. Sorry, I'm in the desert, so I'm a little bit dehydrated. I think I've already talked to you about my time with Artisans Group. On the left is from a photo shoot. I think we did that last spring. So as you can see, very female centric, a really cool environment. They bought this property during the pandemic in Tumwater and converted it into their firm while they're working on building a passive office that's going to be a flex space, I think, with some residential units on the top floor. So really cool opportunity to be involved with them. I will always speak their praises. To the right is my house, the one that was featured in Atomic Ranch. This is my first project. It was a 1963 ranch house that had nothing modern about it. In fact, it had 8-foot drop ceilings and 3 compartmentalized little living spaces. And we kind of blew through the ceiling into the attic, created that beautiful vaulted ceiling space. It was massive. It was a massive undertaking, incredible learning experience, and luckily finished just before the pandemic. So I was able to leave Seattle and have this beautiful, awesome space, which it is over by Olympia High School in Ward Lake. So we had a beautiful backdrop, great neighborhood, awesome neighbors. That's my cat Link down the left-hand corner. And my daughter Cora, which I mentioned, who she's 8 now and he is 16, but we're still going strong in our space and loving it. So that will bring me into pandemic life. So this is kind of, I was on a very specific trajectory in life. I had a child, I had a career, I was moving up the ranks, thinking about going back to get my master's degree in interior architecture, and life had other plans. So in the beginning of 2020, I became pregnant with my son. And unfortunately, things weren't going in great in my relationship. So I would say in the first 2 months of lockdown, I was adjusting from being in this really collaborative firm, working with all these amazing people, to, doing all of my meetings on Zoom in my basement while having an infant and a 4-year-old who was doing Zoom or kindergarten via Zoom, which thank you, Cora's father. I don't know how you did it because I don't have the patience for it, but so I had the baby. We were at home, locked down, terrified. I turned 40 and I got divorced. So all of this happened in a 2 months period. And, you all lived through the pandemic too. It was hard. And it definitely, it shook things up. And it made me start really kind of reevaluating my life and my choices and what I wanted and how I wanted to live and navigate the new reality of my life. And it was a massive transition, and I guess you could say traumatic, but ultimately I think that I really took it as a chance to reinvent my story, figure out what else I wanted to do. So my ex-husband now was moving out, and me and the kids were in the house, and I kind of, when I'm used to this idea of you break up, you move out, you get this new thing, and I was kind of like, I want some new thing. Like I'm in our old home with my kids and trying to reinvent what our life looks like now as a family of 3. And it was a pandemic and we were all stuck there, and I really wanted something positive to focus on. So I started looking at land in Harstine Island, which is an hour south. It's in Mason County. And we have 2 upcoming articles on what I'm about to talk to you about. So I'm not going to go and spare you the details. I'm already talking a lot. But ultimately, I found this beautiful remote location, and I found this really cheap piece of land that was being used as an RV property. So it had utilities already, it had water, it had hookups, it had septic. So I was like, and the price was crazy cheap. So I bought this piece of property. I bought an Airstream. And so me and my kids, instead of being stuck in the house, we're like, we're going out to Hartstein Island. We're going to go walk on the beach. We're going to collect agates. We're going to hang out in our camper, which being with a 4-year-old and a baby as a single mom in a camper on a remote island with no cell services, like, don't do it. It was not a good plan. However, we did love it there, and it became the first time, being this new family and figuring out, what does our life look like? I want to create memories for us, and this dream I already always had was to have a place where we could go be together, get away from our house, all our clutter, our to-do lists, everything that kind of like bogs us down and stresses us out. By us, I mean me, because they're really not doing anything except creating the mess. But so we had this place where we could go be intentional. There was like no services, so I had to be in nature. And the more time I spent there, I was like, I really want more out of this. So I started I went to my computer and I was like, I want to design a cabin, but I'm not an architect. How do I do that? I don't even understand how roof structures work. So I designed an A-frame and because I work for an architecture firm, I said, I have this schematic design concept. Will you guys help me kind of figure out how to make this a reality? So I ended up working with Artisans Group, working with Tessa to really come up with and make this thing a reality. So we spent the next year and a half focused on this dream, making it a reality. So we had our place where we'd all go together and work on this. So the modern A-frame is now on Hartstein Island. I'm very proud of it as an interior designer. It was a pretty big vision, and I'm just really fortunate to have such an amazing creative team to help me see it through. I worked with Pete Kramiak of Bicycle Home Building, who's an excellent dude and an awesome contractor. And I think he's an Evergreen grad as well. And this is the finished product. This is the A-frame. It is quintessential Northwest regional style. Everything in there is locally sourced. So like the countertops come from Richlight, which is I think they're a Tacoma-based company. They do renewable recycled paper material. All of the oak you see, all of the cabinetry is done by Beech Tree Woodworks, who is a local custom cabinetry company who specializes in like green supply too. That's sustainability is very important to them. What else are we looking at? The cedar comes off of Vashon Island, LS Cedar Company, and then the siding. So we were able to mill. So Pete, who was the contractor, had a mill in the past. So we were building and designing this during the pandemic. So, I mean, the supply chain issues were real. All of the slowdowns, everything. It was really hard, and it was really more of an endeavor than I had ever anticipated. But we were able to, do things to kind of cut corners. Or some of the trees we had to take down to accommodate the foundation, we were able to mill. And so the siding you see was actually from milled trees on site. So I'm very proud of this project. This is the one that's going to be featured in Sunset Magazine. I don't know when, but soon, hopefully. And we just did an interview with 1889 Magazine, which is a Seattle-based regional lifestyle publication. So I know that one is coming out in April. So I'm very excited about that. Okay, so from some of my past projects, I want to talk about social sustainability and design. And that can mean a lot of things. And I think it is multifaceted. It can mean, I am the specifier of every material that goes into a new custom home. So I get to say what it is, and I can be really thoughtful, intentional about it, or I can be like, this is pretty, this is what I want, and not say, oh, well, it's coming from China, so I have to worry about multiple things. Like, I don't have control over what kind of adhesives they use. I don't know what the off-gassing is. I don't know what the cost is for transportation. Or I can say, I know we have a bunch of like local products and manufacturers, like, let's see what we can find, to just be really intentional with the choices that we make specifying these places. And luckily, the Northwest has a wealth of beautiful products, materials available. So As a designer, I think that it is my responsibility to think about sustainability in products. However, the way that I want to talk about it today and what really matters to me is how to promote social sustainability. And what I understand that to be is kind of like it is, how do I want to say this? I think that when people think about good design, good modern aesthetic, it seems kind of unattainable, or it seems that it would only be available to a select few, or if I want to have access to this beautiful, thoughtful, well planned out space that's going to promote health and wellness, I'm going to have a lot of money to do that. And like in a lot of cases, that is true. But I've found that there are ways that you can cut across those stereotypes and make access available for more people. So, as I mentioned before, when I was working with Artisans Group, I was primarily interested in remodeling. And I'll tell you why I love that and why I think that it is socially sustainable. A lot of the people who came to us weren't well for their remodels, were not like super well-to-do people who were like X amount of dollars, it costs what it costs, just get it done. These people were like, I've lived in this house for 40 years. I raised my family here. Um, the memories that we made are irreplaceable. We can't walk up the steps anymore, or we can't access this. My wife is now wheelchair bound. Like, we don't want to move. It's going to break our heart. What can we do? So I spent a lot of time really focusing on ADA, accessible design, and universal design, which I think when I was first in school for interior design, universal design was a concept for creating spaces that are accessible for all. But it wasn't a standardized practice. And I think that through the last decade, it has moved more towards standard practice. So from the base, when you are designing an interior space, you think with universal design in mind. It's not something that is retroactive and we have to figure out how to fix later. However, the homes that I'm talking about in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, whenever, that was not the case. Homes were not meant for all. They were meant for the, able-bodied people. So I've spent a lot of my career working with older people who just want to stay in their home. But as anyone knows, the longer you've been in a place, you can't really see how it can be better. It's my home. I can't see the pile of crap over there, or the fact that the corridor is too small. So one of the most meaningful things I've been able to do with my career is take people who love their home and cherish it and don't want to move, and show them that they don't have to, that there are solutions to keep them there. So that feels socially sustainable to me, and it feels really good to give back in that way. As I have started moving forward in my own now independent design firm, I've really thought about the kind of clientele that I want to work with and the kind of people who I want to serve. And I had this really, really incredible opportunity to. A friend of mine who was also, she was my very first first friend at the Evergreen State College, and now she is a grant writer. She was working with Turning Point, which is one of the largest domestic violence shelters in Washington State. She was working with Gina Blanchard. Sorry, I screwed that up. But anyways, they wanted to build a new kitchen, but like all of that, they're reliant on state funding and they don't have a lot of money. And she called me, knowing I'm an interior designer, and said, how do I even go about? I think there's some kind of design that needs to happen. They just kind of they want a new kitchen and maybe like a new idea for a dining room space. And I need to understand who I should reach out to do this. And at the time, like I had a lot of like blessings in my life, a lot of things to be grateful for. And I said, I'll do it. Like, just let me do it. So I decided in 2022 to work with Turning Point, which, what they do, I think is incredible. But their place needed work. And so I was able to work with them to come up with a design that is trauma informed. It is really, really excellent to work with an at-risk community. And when I walked into the space with them, everything was like 1992's finest. The laminate was worn through, the appliances were old, outdated, the lighting was awful fluorescent. There was nowhere to, like, a lot of those women have young children and they're just like holding their kids and trying to cook. And it was really bad design. It was really dated. And I thought, uh, if I'm a woman who is in the state of transition, who is dealing with trauma, this isn't actually going to help me. So I was able to work with Gina, the director, to come up with this new plan that really incorporated a trauma-based approach to design, and we were able to come up with this space that I think, the lighting temperature, making it feel very warm and inviting, giving women a space where if they don't want to gather, they can have their own private areas. And so this, to me, I think, is the primary example of social sustainability within my own career. It was a lot of work, and I did it pro bono, but it felt really good to be involved with, and I was very moved. And I got to meet and talk with residents, and it just like it felt, I would say, more enriching and rewarding than the most beautiful, 5,000 square foot mansion that I could have ever worked on. And I'm really proud of it. And I'm interested in having more opportunities to do things of this nature. And I think that I developed a skill set. I gained certifications. I was able to acquire a skill set that makes me very marketable as a professional, and I can use that to advance my career. I can use that to put more money in my pocket, and that's fine. Like, we all got to make a living, but to be able to give back in a way that now more people who would never have access to this kind of space not only can be there and appreciate it, but at a transitional moment in their life where it is so important that they have a place that's going to promote wellness and healing. So this was a really inspiring opportunity to me. It really started moving me in a different direction as a designer. So I ended up going on sabbatical from Artisans Group because it is a lot of work. I mean, it's a big job. They have great projects, and a lot of them. And quite frankly, having two young children, going through divorce, it was like I actually I can't perform at this level anymore. I need to, like, step away and kind of like reevaluate what I want and where I want to be, and make time for my kids, and like I said before, not show out like a giant stressed out maniac all the time, which is what was happening. So I started Wonderland Design Studio Northwest so that I could still practice interior design. I am a one-person show. This is not a firm with multiple people who's out there, hitting the pavement, making all the contacts, having all the clients. But I have, made a lot of connections in Olympia to tradespeople, contractors, and people like working with me. I'm easy to work with. I'm passionate about what I do, and people come and knock in and they want my services, and I have to be really selective at this point in time because I just don't have the bandwidth to be taking on a lot of projects. So I have shifted downward into doing smaller scale projects with a select few. And I say that as I'm about to talk about now two crazy, very large scale projects that I'm taking on or have taken on in the past year to 2 years. So I have moved from interior designer, which I still call myself because I'm still practicing interior design, to wearing more hats as I have become kind of a land developer and a general contractor. I now have a crew of dudes who are working with me, overseeing infrastructure development on two kind of large scale projects that I think were birthed from the idea of social sustainability, of giving back, of utilizing my skill set to make something bigger, to promote community and wellness and serve more people. So both of these projects are things I'm working on. They aren't totally flushed out, but they're getting there. So this is Twilight Healing and Events Center. It is by and large, it is a glamp ground. So we have Pacific Domes, which I believe is a Northwest-based company out of Oregon, who make these really cool little dome-like glamping structures. So we found this really beautiful site up in Allen, Washington. It's on a private lake that is kind of more of a pond, but so we're building these structures, and the shipping container is a bath building that has bathrooms and showers, because the domes are completely off grid. We use solar power, and yeah. So anyways, we are in the process right now. We opened originally as just Airbnb being these, but it felt kind of disingenuous not to have it be more of a space that can be utilized to promote healing and wellness. And Mason County is not far away, and it is just I'm like a massive Mason County advocate at this point. It's beautiful, it's close by, a lot of green open spaces. So we found this property, we're developing all of these domes. There is now a kitchen building that we're working on, and it's going to be an event retreat space. There are tons of people gathering to do things that will promote wellness and healing. And we wanted to be able to have the backdrop to that. And it has been a massive undertaking. I've been involved with it for over a year now. It is infrastructure on a scale that I didn't know anything about. And luckily, I've got a bunch of skilled people building me up, backing me up, who believe in this project. And I'm very excited about it. I think it's really close to completion. We had a little test run a couple months ago, and it was pretty successful. But so that's one of the two projects I'm working on. So here you can see we've done some photography. These are the domes. We've got the lake. We've got some fire pits. Got the bath building, a sauna, and a hot tub. It's a really cool place. And a lot of people have already reached out to us about hosting weddings, things like that. But what I really envision and where we're going with it is we have like this really big dome that we kind of like, we want to do like sound bath healing stuff and do, just have healers there. And I think that after being locked down and away from each other during the pandemic, I know personally how much it affected me, but I also know how much it's inspiring the way in which I'm choosing to move my energy and utilize my skill set to give back on a large scale to create experiences that are going to enrich people's lives. I envision, people coming here from underserved communities who wouldn't necessarily have access to an outdoor experience like this, and giving them something that they're going to cherish, something that's going to create memories. So that's the Twilight Event Center working name. And because I am kind of a crazy person, I'm also doing the Lazy Dog Retreat. This one is a personal passion project. I found this property shortly after I started building the A-frame, and it was the most magical vortex of a place I'd ever seen. I met the former owner, who was also an Evergreen graduate. He is a 1970s Evergreen graduate, hippie. He built the whole place by hands with his wife, and they lived here for 40 years, and it is truly magical and dreamy. And I went there just because I was like, this is like the coolest place I've ever seen. I have to go. And once I stepped foot on the property, I said, okay, this place is magic. This needs to be shared. I have no business buying this, but I'm going to. and still every day I'm like, what am I doing? What am I doing? But ultimately, we are creating an artist retreat and residency program here for the same reasons that we're working on Twilight, and that is to give people a place to go to inspire, create, come together, have community. That's my best friend Daisy there. She and I went through pandemic hell together as each other's main primary support, and she decided after the pandemic ended that she was going to marry herself, which is awesome. So we had it at the Lazy Dog. However, the Lazy Dog, as being built by hippies 40 years ago, has failing infrastructure. So I think we had 40 guests and just completely destroyed the plumbing system. The fuses blow constantly. So right now we are in the process of updating the infrastructure, which I didn't realize was going to have massive repercussions to the lay of the land. So we are in a planting regenerating process right now that I have a team around me that promises we're going to get through it. It's going to be beautiful and magical again. And I'm here trying to be like, okay, I have to put my trust in everyone around me to help see this vision through, because it's a big daunting process, but I know it's going to be worth it. And I felt this magic energetic pull to this space when I first stepped foot on it. And after having people there, I know that I see people exploring the land, feeling inspired. I know they feel it too. And this is a mere 30 minutes from Evergreen. Probably, actually, it's less, because I spend most of my time driving between here and picking my son up at Evergreen Child Care Center. So I think it's about a 25-minute drive. It's on Hammersley Inlet, Arcadia Point in Shelton, and it's really special, and it's a passion project for sure. And that is where I am dedicating my energy now. So that's my spiel. I hope I didn't run on too long, but yeah, I hope that gives you some idea in which interior design works, and ways in which you can not only use your passion but use your social sustainability to really create something that's meaningful in more ways than just, making money. So that's all I have to say on that.